Let's get started here. So thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. We've got about an hour's time, and we will overrun if people are keen to continue the conversation to talk about orchestration, and in particular how we make it more human as we go through the process. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by three great thinkers in the procurement space that are going to basically share some of their thoughts and insights as we go through this session this afternoon. We've got Sudhir from ORO, Marc from Bayer, and Patrick from Roche as well. The format that we've got this afternoon is we'll share a little bit of content, and then we'll run through individual panel sessions to talk about the content and thoughts and ideas of those different areas. We will be recording the full session and sharing that afterwards together with the slides. And as we go through, if you've got any questions, then please drop them into the chat. We'll make that part of the conversation, either during the slides or the breakouts, and definitely answer any questions we don't answer during the sessions at the end as well. So again, once again for joining us, thank you, and we'll get going then. So first of all, the agenda and what we're going to cover off this afternoon. So as I mentioned, we're going to run through a couple of different sessions and content-wise. First of all, talking about orchestration and its benefits. Then we'll have a panel discussion, and then talk about the orchestration journey. Orchestration as a kind of a term is relatively new. However, some of the principles behind it have been around for a period of time, and different organizations are at different stages on their journey as well. We'll break then into another panel discussion before talking about best practices and what next, and then we'll close out, as I said, with a bit of a panel after that as well. So diving in, and maybe diving in at the deep end here is, for many people, they're looking to understand orchestration and what it means, and how orchestration has evolved from, RPA and smart workflow into something much more that's focused around the human experience as well. Traditionally, procurement approaches are rigid, they're unintuitive, they're complex, difficult to manage. There isn't visibility through the process, and what that ultimately results in is consumer usage is low, and that consumer could be the procurement team, it could be the business, it could be your suppliers, but there's a problem with that experience that basically means we don't get optimal outcomes. A little bit of that is also due to not only the process, but the technology that historically we've been using as well. What we're looking and seeing more is that the procurement process is becoming more humanized, it's becoming more authentic, personalized, transparent, agile. And also you're seeing a few different technology terminologies being dropped into how orchestration is being built. Semantics, so the importance of words and the timing of things as well, which we'll talk about as we go through. So what does it really mean to basically implement orchestration? Over the last few years, a lot of organizations have looked to formalize their processes and their capabilities, and then apply technology to those different solutions as well. We've seen a progression from core backbone solutions like SAP and Coupa, and the addition of bespoke and individual solutions on top of that, whether it's iCertis for contract management or Candex for transactional management, and which basically enable you to basically build out a platform and a journey. The challenge is it's still a little bit clunky. It's one system doesn't talk as effectively as it can to the other, and that, combined with the data flows being fragmented, means that the journey and the user experience isn't as genuine and as real as it could be. So when we talk about orchestration and being real, it orientates to the user experience with smart workflows that enable collaboration, and enable to talk in the language of procurement, of users as well, in a more natural way. And ultimately, that means there's a number of different advantages and benefits for procurement. Some of the basic advantages talk about compliance and visibility, but then you can move on to productivity and effectiveness. That basically starts to move into kind of a new sort of level of value that's been delivered as well. What we're seeing is that organizations are still looking to articulate exactly what the business case is, and understanding what the value is behind it, because often it's basically about realizing an existing business case that's been put in place for an existing platform of solutions and processes. But more so, we're seeing people look at things like the customer experience, customer satisfaction, net promoter scores, speed of execution through the process being shortened as well. So ultimately, though, there are a lot of benefits, and there isn't any organization that we've spoken to in the last 3 to 6 months that isn't basically looking at process orchestration and what it means for them in terms of their short-term plans, but more importantly for their long-term plans for realizing their overall vision across procurement as well. So with that, be great to flip to the panel to hear a little bit more about thoughts and basically answer a couple of questions we've got here. And if you're okay, as we dive into this, and I'll come to you, Marc, first, if it's all right. If you're okay to do a quick introduction, you know, kind of who you are, and you know, I guess a little bit what makes you passionate about this space as well.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Marc. I've been with Bayer since 2015. There in various positions, from sourcing to business partnering. So, a very long-sided procurement track, and in the last endeavor, basically focused on how to bring category management to life at Bayer, and also prepare us for future challenges from a view of data, people, process, and technology. So you could call it digital transformation. And I think one of the key aspects there was really to make procurement work for our people in the end, and people come in various shapes and forms, first and foremost business users, suppliers, but also the procurement teams. And I think process orchestration really there offers a great opportunity to finally solve a lot of problems. I have been personally first came in contact with the whole intake challenge when I joined the corporate world. So before that, I was in consulting, and also the automotive sector, and there I would say you had very clear kind of tasks specified, so there was not too much ambiguity when it came to what the actual intent was. But in the corporate environment, of course, you get hit by so many different stakeholders with so many different ideas and interests. Kind of streamlining this intake was a big thing. And back in the day, I also have to say, well, apologize now for putting some of our students through impossible tasks by trying to solve intake with the tools that were at hand at the given time. So we were kind of trying to build something questionnaire based in our current P2P environment, which was just an impossible task. It was the right idea at the wrong time. And this is basically what got me started on the journey of procurement orchestration. You're on mute.
So just coming to the question here, what do you see as driving this current surge in orchestration as well?
I think it's really the longing for solving something that hasn't been solved for such a long time, and also simplifying things, because I always have this picture in mind of switchboard telephone operators that kind of plugged the calls and connected the calls back in the day. Sometimes it can feel like that in procurement space as well, and I think moving forward in time, we will look back at how we did things in procurement and think about it in that analogy. It's just something that will accelerate as, different demands will accelerate, and it will no longer be handleable in the old-fashioned way. So I think people are starting to see this. So this notion of simplicity, hiding complexity, I think is a key driver there in order to make sense of that and be able to handle it. I always like the analogy to, if you're interested in smart home automation, it's basically the first thing you will realize at a certain point in time. If you don't want to deal with all different kind of ecosystems and integration problems, you need some sort of hub, some sort of place to go and connect the things. And this is for me also what procurement orchestration is all about. Really hiding complexity and making things usable and also connecting the pieces.
Fantastic. Thanks, Marc. And Patrick, flipping to you, it'd be great to hear a quick intro and then your thoughts on what's driving the current surge as well.
Hi, yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Foelck. I'm part of the procurement leadership team at Roche. I've been with the company for about 6 years now, 14 years in consulting before. And yeah, I think we at Roche, we are excited about procurement or process orchestration in general, because I think it really is the tool that will make our strategy finally work. And I think we're not alone. Many have been investing in sort of startup or other solutions in addition to the end-to-end suite, complemented the ecosystem in the hope to deliver on many of the promises we've been making for years as procurement. Now finally we have the solutions coming up left, right, and center. We get all excited, we put them in place, and then we realize, well, as you said, they don't necessarily talk to each other that well, or we're creating a one system to another system to another system to another system user journey. So I think this is sort of the glue, the layer on top that ties it all together and creates this beautiful experience for the end user, not realizing they're actually entering or exiting various systems. It's all done by this magic of orchestration. And with that, hopefully then makes not only our strategy, but procurement's overall, I think, vision that we all collectively have, delivering a better user experience and delivering an impact, actually work. So for me, it is a big in-demand topic at the moment, because we have the opportunity to really drive and deliver change with all the solutions that are out there now. But if we just do solution by solution by solution by solution, well, we're again delivering pain. So this is the final missing puzzle that will make it work.
Fantastic. Thanks, Patrick. And finally, Sudhir, yourself as well. I'd hesitate before saying if it's all about the magic that maybe you're a wizard, but that wouldn't be the appropriate introduction. So great to hear a few words from yourself.
Yeah, hi. Firstly, thanks everybody for joining, and thank you, Lance, for organizing it as well. Yeah, my name is Sudhir Bhojwani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ORO Labs. My journey in procurement started in 2010 when I joined a company which some of you love and some of you hate, called Ariba. And I joined as a senior software engineer, became part of SAP through the acquisition, had opportunity to work with many customers, ended up running the Ariba engineering team, product management. Until 2010, I didn't know what procurement was. I had not heard of what a purchase request is, to be frank. I didn't know what a purchase request was. I knew what a contract is. I knew what an invoice was. But anything else, I had no idea. I didn't know what a sourcing was. I mean, I could guess based on the English language what it could mean, but I didn't know what it was. So when I joined, I was very fascinated by this problem, which is procurement. My first instinct was, sounds like a problem that impacts a whole lot of people. Because when I think about marketing, when I think about R&D, everybody must buy something. But when you look at the process, it is thought of as a back-end process, actually. It's a back office function almost. So that kind of never resonated with me. So I became even more fascinated with it. So I ended up spending 9 years at SAP Ariba combination, because I think the problem is far more interesting. And the journey of making the user experience amazing is still the journey that we all should be on. And the real journey is, how do we make it easy and how do we make it simple so that business users actually understand? Because people do need to buy things for their business. People do buy, and people are not buying papers and pencils. Let's just be clear about it. Marketing person is trying to hire a marketing agency to do a logo redesign. I don't think he or she is worried about buying a papers and a pencil, which is important as well. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But things are far more complex than that. But my realization was, when I tried to do all these things at Ariba, I just could not crack the nut on it. I just couldn't figure it out. So I had to give it up completely, leave Ariba to think about it, why my efforts were not clear. And finally, after leaving Ariba for more than a year, I realized the problem. The problem was old technology has thought of process as a linear process. Starts with sourcing, goes all the way to payment. When I applied that logic on my own transactions, when I ran a big team at Ariba, my realization was, oh my God, that process doesn't even map to my own requirements, actually, as it turns out. My own requirements were not linear. They were non-linear. When I had to do a transaction with one of our partners in Czech Republic, I actually had to go through many more steps within SAP. I had to go through third-party risk assessment, all other kinds of due diligence we had to do before actually creating a purchase request in my own tool, Ariba. So that was kind of my eye-opening moment. I still couldn't figure out what was going on. And now why is this surge suddenly is a good question, having said all that. I believe it has been brewing for a long time. I don't think it's one moment that caused it. Now, I do believe Gen AI has some more impact on it. People's expectations have gone up dramatically. And I also believe in general, the impact of COVID and everything else that has happened in the last 7, 8, 9 years has brought a little bit more focus on procurement. So it has gotten a little bit focused, but I can't just say that is the reason why suddenly orchestration has become interesting and important. But I do think when you combine the people's expectations, the turnaround time has become really, really important for companies. Speed is of essence nowadays. Savings is still important, no doubts, but speed is equally important. Compliance requirements are actually going up, not going down. In this environment, how do you deliver great user experience when there are so many stakeholders, as Marc mentioned, and as Patrick mentioned, it's the same journey we've been on for a very long time of user experience, when the requirements are getting actually more complex, and the requirement is also to do things faster, not slower. And I believe when you put it all together, you get a very natural solution. Say, hey, we need something that will glue it all together. And one other last point I'd like to mention is, and this is a discussion I've been having with many people for the last 10 years, I feel, best of breed versus suite. I fundamentally have come to the conclusion no one tool can do it all. That's my fundamental belief. No one tool can ever do it all. So there will be a tool that will be amazing at direct material sourcing. There will be a tool that is amazing at indirect sourcing. There will be a tool that is amazing at contracts. There will be a tool that's amazing at catalogs. And there'll be a tool that is amazing at AP automation. And there'll be an amazing tool that's for e-invoicing. There are many, many tools that are amazing at it. So for one tool to do it all, I just don't believe it's reality. When you, again, that adds another dimension why orchestration is furthermore needed.
Yeah, thanks, Sudhir. And it's a great end there as well. Let's talk about, and we often talk best of all, you know what I mean? So you've got that combination within your ecosystem. Patrick, I know you often talk about best of both, getting the best of basically the platform end-to-end suites as well as best of breed solutions. But maybe Patrick, any thoughts on kind of how you prioritize or why you should prioritize investing in orchestration, maybe at the expense of one of these other best of breed solutions when you're making those choices?
I guess the easiest answer is, or that the immediate answer rather, is to make your current ecosystem really work, to deliver the benefits you've been promising, to not only deliver the technical capability, but also deliver the user engagement, the user experience, and make them use your landscape the way you want them to use it. Otherwise, I think they use them potentially in silos, click and figure it out somehow, but they don't use them intentionally. So I think deliver your current strategy, deliver your current, I guess, intention with your ecosystem. The second point, which is potentially even bigger, is will orchestration enable us to truly move towards best of breed? Today, I think if you want to deliver best of breed as a big company, you have to make a massive risky decision to basically put a set of tools out there that at best connect at some sort of data layer, but may not talk to each other. And you deliver an experience in pockets. And you have to hope for the best, that your users somehow deal with it and figure it out. But orchestration as the layer on top can actually make best of breed work. And you don't have to have the best of all or best of both anymore, because there's no suite needed anymore. Yeah, it could be the data layer, in the middle your selection of tools, and on top your orchestration layer, and that makes it all work together. So I think there's an immediate priority for us: make current ecosystem work, but there's a long-term or longer-term opportunity here. And if we don't start investing now, I guess maybe too late.
And Marc, anything you'd add to that before we start moving on to the next section?
For me, the key part here is really in terms of the focus on the business end user, because this is truly what we can target with orchestration. It's not about doing procurement for procurement or finding the next best sourcing solution. It's solving immediate pain points by helping our business users get to what they need in the most efficient way, and also utilizing the tech we already have in-house. So I think also, if you look at it from that point of view, it's really a natural first step towards true digital transformation and for procurement, because you will be tackling all parties in terms of business users, suppliers, and also the procurement teams. So great starting point for that journey.
Yeah, good. I mean, it's a perfectly answered question. Lee's just asked a question here. Does the panel feel that orchestration should be the starting point on the transformation of the end-to-end procurement process rather than the final piece of the puzzle? And I think you've answered that a bit by saying it's about the consumer first. And then also for me as well, you need to be able to tie it to the end-to-end vision as well. And then that will enable you to decide at what stage you bring orchestration in as well. But we'll pick up, Lee, a little bit on your question as well, and a couple of the slides and sections we're going to run through as well over the next couple of minutes as well. So what does that orchestration look like? So we, when we're working with organizations, see people being at different stages, whether it be at the early stages, at the initiate, all the way through to unifying and ultimately to innovating as well. There are no organizations that are at the innovate stage where they've got fully end-to-end orchestrated orchestration processes in place with the flexibility to tweak, to change, to improve, where basically citizens or your teams are responsible for the change. But there are people with that firmly in their view in terms of where they will be from a vision perspective. What we're seeing most organizations are at is at the initiate and unify stage. They're exploring the different tools and options that can be put in place. They're looking at particular use cases where they would start to apply orchestration, whether it's intake at the start of the journey, or whether it's supplier onboarding, or whether it's something around contract intake and risk as well, and then moving into the application of those solutions as well through unifying, so developing that workflow automation as well. So there is a way to go on the journey, but I'm of the same opinion as the rest of the panel is that organizations see this as, and it is part of a fundamental part of the journey to implement orchestration as well. So what we want to do quickly for everybody here was basically just take a quick second to do a quick poll. So for people to basically use your phone and scan the QR code, and you'll go into the QR code and you'll see a quick question there, which basically will ask you at what stage you think your organization is at. Are you basically at an initiate stage? Are you unifying? Or basically you're optimize or innovating as well. So it'd be good to, as I say, if you can take a couple of seconds, I'll jump back again, take a look at the QR code and answer the question as well. And then we'll come back to that a little bit later as well. So with that, coming back to the panel as well, and maybe, Sudhir, it'd be great to hear a little about you, because I know you're super passionate about humanizing the orchestration process. Well, what does that mean for you?
It's I mean, to me, it means as a person who is a business user, who has little interest in becoming a procurement expert. I work in marketing, I work in R&D, I work in sales, I work in legal. I'm not a procurement expert. I didn't go to school for procurement either. I still want my company to be safe. I want to be a good citizen. So help me be a good citizen. But at the same time, that citizenship should not come at a price of delaying my work or effort I have to put in to get the job done correctly. So humanizing is really, for me, my perspective, first and foremost, is about making it clear how it's supposed to be. To give you an example, actually, I asked some of my team members, what does procurement orchestration mean in non-procurement context? So I'd ask my marketing team, hey, what do you guys think about orchestration in context of marketing? So one of our team members gave a really good example. He said orchestration is like an octopus. And that octopus in marketing world, let's assume you're running multiple marketing campaigns. You're doing a marketing campaign on LinkedIn, on Google, on some other campaigns. What would be nice is if all these campaigns who are working in completely different channels, they still share the data. And if I realize that I'm getting pretty strong signals from my customer on LinkedIn, maybe I can stop my Google or double down on Google, whichever it might be. But in this case, the data is being shared in an interesting way. What will be equivalent of that in procurement world? That makes what I will call humanization. In real world, lot of things happen in parallel. People don't do things sequentially. People do risk assessment. People do contracts. People sometimes even do sourcing in parallel. It's not like you run the sourcing event, you award, and then you go into contract always. It's not like after you run the contract or before the contract, you do third-party diligence. Third-party diligence has 5 different things you do potentially. And all these things can happen in different ways. It cannot always be a formula that it always happens exactly the same way. How do we give humans? Firstly, we guide them and make it easy for them to understand what is actually needed to be a good citizen. But secondly, give them the power to do things which is right for the thing that they're trying to do. Once I understand my technical due diligence, my data privacy is going to take me 45 days. Let me decide when I want to start data privacy. Maybe sometimes I want to start early, sometimes I want to start late for various reasons. Of course, and that's what humanizing means. It's not about taking over the control from the human beings. It's really about empowering them. In my mind, fundamentally, it's about empowering humans. That's why we think humanizing the procurement experience is the concept which I think is the fundamental to what orchestration should deliver.
Okay. And Marc, from your perspective, is that in tune with your definition, or would you add to it, maybe in the context of buyer as well?
I think maybe the smart procurement orchestration is really more of the end goal. Starting point could be being less painful, maybe as a get-go, and really making something useful and not too clumsy in a certain way, because and this can be very easy examples of what you put in step 1 should not be you should not be asked to repeat in step 8, right? Because you're switching to a tool. So I think that can already go a long way in terms of humanizing something and making it on the one hand easier to understand, and also contextualizing it. Because what we found when we first what our starting point was when we tackled the problem was really that we have so many rules in place that it's so hard for casual users who are not really doing this on the everyday to understand what we expect them to do. And orchestration can really help to explain this in an end-to-end way, and always having this end-to-end process view in mind in order to also give the transparency how long something will take, why we're doing certain things, and also pulling a lot of the necessary inputs into the process as early as possible, by really prompting the user in the right way. So for me, this is really the starting point about humanizing this, is putting ourselves in the shoes of the business users and making the systems work for them and not the other way around.
Yes, so simplification as a starting point as well. And for you, Patrick, is it how do you define it?
I think a lot has been said. I just want to add an easy example I always give when we talk about orchestration internally. We as procurement professionals, we like to talk about, we want to have a seat at the table, we want to deliver value beyond savings, we want to do all these amazing things. And then when I come to the business sometimes and talk about all these amazing things that we can do, and my eyes light up, they show me the pain they have to go through when they engage with us. The 50 stupid clicks they have to do in order to get just order a pen. Yeah, and then basically the answer is get your basics right first, guys. Yeah, before you come to me and talk about the value add and all the crazy stuff you can do. Like as someone that talks about driving a Formula 1 race, They've never been on a bike before, never seen a car. Yeah, so I think orchestration makes us actually check that ticket to actually deliver on the things we want to deliver, because it gets the basics right. And that's whether it's smart or humanized, I don't mind. It will be our ticket to success, because it will help us to get the basics right.
Yeah. Now, I completely agree. But I'm just about to throw something in from the left field here, which is AI. I know, Sudhir, you're particularly excited about some of the problems that have existed that we couldn't solve, a couple of years ago, but now you're solving within the platform using AI and Gen AI. So so give us a view on that, Sudhir. How you're basically baking that into the solution.
I can give you some examples. I mean, GenAI, first of all, we all acknowledge, anybody who's even living in the cave, you'll agree, GenAI is the game changer. Nobody's going to debate that too much. But the question is, how can you realistically use it and what problems we can solve? There are many, many problems we can solve. I'll just give an example or two of that. So one example is, we know a lot of procurement process, risk processes are built around trying to understand what user is trying to do actually. What is the intent of what user is trying to do, right? If I understand, so sometimes that intent is captured in the form of a commodity or a category, as we say. But if you ask a user, tell me what category it is, the users look at the commodity tree, or the taxonomy as we call it. And if you have seen UNSPSC, it's even better. Thank God nobody uses UNSPSC in the front, at least. But regardless, the taxonomy has thousands of nodes and they're overlapping. It's impossible for human to pick what they are trying to do from that tree. But a lot of rules are built around it, rightly so, by the way, to simplify the rules. That's why they're built around that. So maybe GenAI can just tell me what the commodity is. I can tell you in plain English what I'm doing. You figure out what my intent is. It's very, very simple. You can figure out an intent. You can figure out the category. You can figure out a whole lot more. So that will be an example, I would say, where GenAI. But I think fundamentally, I think it can not only just be used as a process efficiency, it can definitely reduce unnecessary steps. I know Marc and Bear team, they have some, and same thing with Patrick, they have amazing ideas on what they want to accomplish with Gen AI. But I think process efficiency is there, but I think user experience is the first thing I would say it's going to help us solve, as we are all talking about.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, we often get talked about, well, show us the use cases, show us the application, and then show how it can be done at scale. Marc, maybe coming to you on this, is that, I mean, and maybe it's open it up to beyond orchestration. How are you seeing the adoption of AI at Bayer and within your procurement ecosystem as well?
I think in the early days, the whole discussion reminded me a lot about the blockchain hype back in the day, where everyone was trying to sell you solutions based on that, but nobody really had an idea on how to put it to really pragmatic use. And I think that's, for me, really the huge difference to what's Gen AI, because we can really get to applications very fast, and also to adapt and fine tune that. So when we talk about the humanizing aspect of the orchestration layer, Gen AI is really key in order to understand users' intent, figure out what category to choose and where to go next, and also not providing too much described input, because if you have a machine sitting there with an IQ of 150, that's a pretty good starting point in order to think about the next steps that you can take. For example, taking a not so great description from a business user and turning it to something that the supplier can actually work with. So I think overall, Gen AI will offer great building blocks for the process orchestration piece, because it will eventually enable better, faster, cheaper, and especially safer processes. I think the better part is easy to understand, because it's simply the tech is ready to provide new solutions. The faster part that I'm so excited about is really the way how quickly you are able to discuss a problem and then come up with a solution, and also fine tune the results. So we have made very, very good experience with that, in order to be very quickly start with a first draft and then fine tune it over time to deliver even better results. Cheaper part, I think it's very obvious. But I think the safer aspect is also something that is super interesting to me, because I think very fast we will get to a point where Gen AI is not only advisable to use because it's more robust than the human input, but something that people often get wrong is that they make the analogy that humans sometimes tend to get tired or more likely to make errors the longer they perform a task. And with AI, it's simply the other way around. It will only get better over time. So very soon, I think we will see a lot of cases where it's also much safer to apply the Gen AI components to have more robust processes in the end, and finally be able to solve procurement as a process.
Okay, good. And Patrick, from you and the Roche team.
I think AI will bring the smartness, as we discussed earlier. Yeah, so
Okay.
I think some of the thinking and the visualization and the logic around orchestration brings the human aspect, the engaging, okay, I finally want to do this here and work with procurement. I think the AI makes it faster, and then Gen AI hopefully leapfrogs and makes some of these processes redundant because they will be done for someone. As soon as you enter, I'm Peter, and the system knows Peter always buys a pen, then Peter doesn't need to go through the requisitioning process of a pen. The thing says, do you want to buy a pen? Okay, click here, done, right? So it leapfrogs the process steps.
Yeah, fantastic. A couple of questions that have come in here on the side, which we can ask here, is basically the one we'll cover now, one to cover later, which is obviously orchestration, as we articulated, is a layer that sits across the top. But you also, as we know, we can do orchestration in particular steps. It might be the intake, might be supplier onboarding as well. What would you say is the minimum, but the place to start? What would be the minimum you could start with, the smallest use case across those different use cases?
I'm not sure there is a clear answer like that, but if I were to pick with gun to head, I would say the simplest use case is what I think Marc and Patrick both were alluding to, which is, hey, can I at least make the intake and the first step in the process easy? It could be as simple as that. And integrating with your existing tool. Let's say you have some sort of a P2P tool or a sourcing tool. Can this be the intake at least first part of the journey, even if I don't automate the end-to-end process? So at least that first piece can be easy enough so the business user can get started. Or you may not even have a P2P tool. You can still start with this, because we see so many companies that actually don't have any sourcing tool, and they put all kinds of intake on top of Jira and stuff like that. And this can do a much better job than Jira, certainly, because Jira was not built for this. So it can do a much better job. So I think it could be simple as that. Actually, you don't have to do the whole thing. In fact, I would in fact recommend taking baby steps as well.
Okay, good. We'll come back to the second question in a minute. We're just going to move on to a little bit here to talk about, where can you start in the journey, and what you need to have in place as you're going on that journey. There's a few different things that need to be addressed, and we've dived into quite a bit of detail. But the second question does say, well, how do we engage with the business to make them understand why we're prioritizing this as well? And I'll answer that in a second. I mean, for us, when we're working with organizations, probably the first thing that you need to kind of look at is how orchestration fits within your overall digital strategy, and then objectives and priorities, and how you align that as well. And then quite quickly, but behind that, there needs to be a kind of an understanding of those priority use cases that we've talked about, where the biggest amount of value can be developed and built out from as well. And that feeds quite quickly into their process design, but process design in a different way. So yes, old school was process design using pen and paper. Now it's a lot more collaborative, frequently in tool, especially when you move on to the second and third iteration, where you're making refinements to the process in platform. There definitely needs to be a focus on product, and often what we look at here is this focus on, and the shift what we're seeing, where there's a focus on product and on the platform as well, so that people understand the product, which is sourcing or contracting, and the end-to-end platform, which is the end-to-end operating system as well. That's important, so you fundamentally understand that what makes up the product and the platform, because yes, it's orchestration, it's software, it's basic data, it's also architecture that sits behind it, so you're able to kind of look at the product in its entirety as well as the overall platform. And that ultimately feeds into operating models and how you work as an organization. One of the major shifts we're seeing is that people are starting to kind of deliberate about how they change the organization to be able to operate in a digital way. And some organizations are basically going more in a more sort of evolution way, where it's basically changing roles and role profiles slowly, changing the sort of organizational slowly. Others are basically saying, well, at that point in time, that team or that activity will not exist, and that person will change roles and be working somewhere else, and so taking more of a hardline approach to it. Either way, there is going to be implications on the way that you work, and technology will be part of enabling that, but there will be organizational operating changes that need to happen as well. That's often magnified within what we call the digital center of excellence. It's the teams, that Marc and Patrick run, with basically responsible for digital, where their roles are changing. No longer is it just about selecting a great solution, but it's also designing it, building it, and running it as the platform basically changes over a period of time. And basically, Marc and Patrick are building their teams to be able to manage a future state from a central perspective as well. So these are some of the key things, and obviously there's collaboration across teams as well, and on the roadmap as well. And what we see next in this whole space is quite a sort of shift in the way that people are thinking about it, and basically talking about moving from those basic use cases to actually demonstrating value, linking it to the metrics that we see as a result of it. We have to completely rethink the user experience. And often this means that organizations aren't just looking at, say, deploying their process improvement team to basically make the change, because they don't know the art of the possible. They're not in touch with both the end user experience, or indeed what the art of the possible is with the technology or data you're providing as well. So there's a few different things here that basically organizations are sort of putting in their mind for what they do next. So back to the panel here as well. Basically, I know it's early days, relatively speaking, compared to maybe the S to P generation that we've been through, or best of breed generation we've come through. But Patrick and Marc, any kind of key areas we're seeing impact already being delivered? And I know it's kind of early days, but any kind of key areas you're seeing impact?
I think build on what Sudhir said earlier, pick something easy, simple, start with that, and deliver an impact. And to me, it could be as easy as, for example, some contract CDA input, or CDA as a request that we get a lot in procurement. You can sort of automate this almost with orchestration. Yeah, and that is a relatively easy intake type process, almost fully automated. Put some AI or Gen AI on top, and hardly any click required. That's such a massive impact to the organization, where we have hundreds of them come in every day. If you now put this from super painful, 15 clicks, wait 3 days, five questions back from procurement or whoever, now into full self-service, super easy to use with orchestration, it's a big win. So start with something easy with a big impact, and that will buy you a lot of credit.
Yeah, the interesting thing there you said was self-serve, which I think is a huge understated opportunity, if that makes sense. We've talked as a procurement function for a long time about letting the business or suppliers do things themselves, but in reality, procurement haven't stepped out of the cycle.
Even worse, we just handed over pain. Yeah, instead of us going through the pain, we're now making the business go through the pain. which
Yeah.
creates actually the opposite. You may save some time or FTEs, but you're creating a massive reputational damage for yourself. So to win a seat at the table or do something that is more exciting than hunting savings, you put yourself light years back again.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Marc, any sort of early signals or things that you're prioritizing to deliver that impact as well?
I think it's relatively easy to demonstrate value to procurement folks and maybe also to suppliers whenever it comes to, I don't know, a nicer interface on how to interact or showing some of the Gen AI capabilities to procurement folks. I think it clicks rather easily. I think the challenge with process orchestration is that you need a certain level of depth and breadth for the process coverage, because if you now provide one building block where you do category recommendations, but then the process just stops and you're asked to go somewhere else, it's not really providing super high value for the business user. So you need to have some level of process consistency in order to make it work for the business people. I think this is kind of what you need to figure out, how to build that skeleton in order to really delight the users. In a way, you don't have to deliver all features in one go, but I think you need a certain depth and breadth of the process coverage in order to provide that end-to-end experience. And then I think you can also add over time, go deeper in certain process steps, but you need to have a clear start and finish point to deliver the full impact from the get-go in order not to disappoint.
Yeah, I mean, excellent kind of, I think, recommendation, because we often find people don't look at the end goal, and that can have implications for a number of different reasons. And granted, it's probably going to move, but at least if you've got a defined end state you're working to, you can build through the building blocks and continue to add value as you work through the kind of the backlog of activities as well. And Sudhir, I mean, you live this every day. You know, the delivering impact, you know, is kind of what you talk to all customers about. But you know, what are you seeing as the biggest benefits?
I mean, when we have gone through circle the cart through many different customers, we end up coming up with two fundamental benefits. Some people will say, is it a hard benefit or a soft benefit? I think it's more than a hard benefit. Because if you think about it, two fundamental benefits we come up with is user experience, agility. Those are the two fundamental. And how do you measure them now? And what is the impact of them, right? So if you think about user experience, turnaround time is a clear-cut indicator of a great user experience. If people are able to do things faster, I can count it. I can measure it very easily. And what is the benefit of it? You will not only have a happier user who will give you a much more NPS score, and to Patrick's point, who are more willing to engage with procurement. Not only that, but actually they can get the job done better too. They actually can done in a safer way, as Marc mentioned. They can get the job done safer too. So engaging user and measuring it is pretty. Everybody. I mean, I lived in Ariba for 9 years, and only metric that I ever sold was savings, to be frank. And now we're talking about a metric where the user engagement actually matters, as it turns out. And agility, the other one that we keep thinking is a really critical one, which is, can I adopt new requirements that come all the time these days? Just imagine the difference, the number of months that went between COVID and the Ukraine to now what's going on again. Takes a long time for a change these days in the world, and that change has to be adopted in a very fast way. So agility is important. Can I adopt new changes in days and not weeks and months and years? And that can again be measured, I think. So I personally think those two things, NPS, turnaround time, and how long it takes for me to adopt a new change, all those things are measurable. And we have done some analysis with some process mining analysis with some customers, and we are able to showcase very clearly, even if you take a baby step, what can the impact of that be?
Yeah. And this all links into kind of a little bit of the business case for change and basically getting approval to go. One of the questions that's come in as well asks about, well, okay, procurement, we're starting to understand it and adopt it, but fundamentally, how do we convince or work with, you know, our finance team or our strategy team or supply chain team to make this happen? You know, how do we kind of engage with those in the best way?
I think Patrick or Mark should take this one for sure.
So to put it in the most succinct way that I could come up with was really this tagline of make procurement work for our people, and then expanding this to it's our business users, it's our suppliers, and also our procurement teams. Because in the end, that is the USP for me in order to put them right in center and help them with their daily struggles. So this is nothing about procurement for procurement, but really about our customers.
For me, it's about making buying easy. And as soon as you have someone who likes what they are doing, they're willing to do more of it, engage more deeply in it, and ultimately you have them on your platform, you can start influencing them and actually make them do what you want them to do. So, but it all starts with that they like what they're doing. So making buying easy and then deliver on your strategy.
I'll give one example to your question, Lance. I recently met a head of finance at a very large company, and going in, and I'd been working with their team for a while. So my going in assumption was I'll have to show them how this impacts the savings, how it impacts all kinds of metric. I was willing to show him the reports and all those things. We got into the meeting. It was a 1 hour meeting. He gave me 1 full hour. 1 full hour, we discussed user experience actually. So I think again, everybody's different. I totally acknowledge that. Not that cannot be sold to every head of finance. I can understand that. But it's I think this user experience argument to say that it's not true, that finance people would not understand that. Yeah, there is some people who needs a little bit more convincing, no doubts about that. But I think this user experience pain point, head of finance also feels. If you talk to a CFO, they hear from their business owners too that, hey, we don't like this process very much. It's not like they don't hear it.
Okay. And the final question here is, what should you prioritize on the journey to building humanized procurement orchestration, or to building procurement orchestration? So what's the number one thing for people to be thinking about?
I think we mentioned this before. I think try to deliver impact early, quickly. So start with something easy, convince, and then they want more.
Brilliant. Yeah.
For me, it would be also trying not to boil the ocean by tackling the entire process or the entire organization with, I don't know, big bang rollouts or whatsoever, but really start with a small, nimble team with few experts, and then really learn with that, involve few users, and then scale it. Because you need to have a certain level of, let's say, user feedback in order to improve this, and also not trying to solve all the problems within your own 4 walls. You need to go out and really test the impact, because you can think about all different kinds of ways to improve this. In the end, it also has to resonate with the business users and really be applicable. So I would really encourage to start small and focus.
Fantastic. And then Sudhir?
No, I agree. I echo. I think starting small and iterating and perfecting is the way to go. But I think what that small looks like can vary depending on the situation. Some people may be early in their journey, don't have not even implemented P2P. Some people would have said, hey, I've already gone through cycles of implementing 2 different P2P already. So the journeys are really different. Different people are at a different point in time in the journey, so it can vary. But overall, though, I do believe the fundamental thing should be, can you do something in few months as opposed to few years? That's for sure. It should be few months. It should not be like a 2-year project. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. In terms of the survey we ran earlier on, about 60, just over 60% of people are at that first stage, either not started, doing nothing, or basically just getting started, initiating. There's about 20% were kind of that level 2, unifying, and 10% in basically optimize and innovate. So a kind of a fair reflection of where we're at. I'd love to speak to the person who's at Innovate. So if you want to tag me afterwards, we'd love to find out how you got there, because you are a kind of a leading light if you are truly doing it across the board everywhere. So feel free to contact me afterwards, and we'll share your fantastic story as well. So basically just a couple of things to wrap up here. And yeah, firstly, thanks so much to the panel. The conversation has been fantastic, very kind of illuminating and rich in terms of the experience and help in terms of people, in terms of where to focus. We are and have over the last couple of weeks been working with a couple of experts and talking to a few individuals to get their inputs to a kind of a white paper we're creating with the ORO team on this journey, and it'll be a great guide for people as they go on the journey. The overall session, as I say, has been recorded, and we'll be sharing that with everybody who kind of registers and attended. And as always, you know, thanks very much for your time and your collaboration on these calls as well. And thanks again to the panel as well for your time. So take care, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.